Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Pinay Nurse. I've created this channel to help nursing students navigate through their courses. And for this video, we'll be taking up creating a transcript file. What is a transcript file? It is a file of an interview or focus group discussion wherein the spoken word is converted to a written or typed version. But why is there a need to do this? The answer is obvious. It is easier to read a transcription rather than listen to the original recording of the interview. Now let's see the steps in creating a transcript file. First, provide the necessary details about the interview. Include the following information: date and time of the interview. For the participant, do not use the actual name. Instead, use a code or a pseudonym. We want to preserve anonymity. Then the interview number refers as to whether this is the first, second, or third interview for that particular participant. The interview setting is also described in detail. Example, participant A, interview number 2, that is the second interview for participant A. The date is January 3, 2024. Time is 3 to 4:15 p.m. Interview setting is described in detail. In the living room of participant A's home, participant A and I are seated facing each other. A round table measuring half a meter is between us, and my phone used as recorder is on the table. There are no other persons around. Next, decide on the type of transcription to be done. You may choose between true verbatim or clean verbatim. True verbatim is a reproduction of the whole interview, including repeated words, fillers such as grammatical errors, and nonverbal communication. Clean verbatim is a reproduction of the interview except the parts mentioned previously. The advantage of a true verbatim is that it provides information not only on what was said, but also on how it was said. A clean verbatim, on the other hand, has the advantage of removing distractors so that it would be easier to focus on the important parts of the content. Next, transcribe the interview using a voice-to-text app. You actually have several choices, but choose a software that recognizes the language that is used in the interview. But what if there is no such software? Then you will have to transcribe manually. The problem with manual transcription is that it is labor-intensive and time-consuming. For 1 hour of audio recording, it will take you about 5 to 6 hours to do manual transcription. After you're done transcribing, then proofread the transcription. Play the recording as you read the transcription. Correct for any errors. Expect errors, especially when you're using a voice-to-text app, because these are not 100% accurate. And expect more errors when your participant has a lot of mispronunciation or when the participant has an accent. Clean the transcription if making a clean verbatim, which means remove the unnecessary parts. Indicate who said which statements. Use I for interviewer and P for participant. An alternative is to use the code assigned to the participant. Example, participant A or participant 1 would be indicated as PA or P1. Provide appropriate spaces in the text. Put an extra space between the statements of the interviewer and the participant. Example, interviewer said, "What did you do after that?" And space, participant A answered, "I went home and cried the whole night." Break up responses. When the participant's single response consists of different ideas, break it up and separate with an extra space. Example, this is what participant A actually said. "I like daydreaming, I can escape reality, I hate people who talk so much, such a nuisance." If you look at this verbalization, it consists of two ideas. So transcribe as participant A, "I like daydreaming, I can escape reality," and space, participant A, "I hate people who talk so much, such a nuisance." Indicate brief pauses in the interview. If there is a brief pause lasting at least 4 seconds but less than 10 seconds, use an ellipsis. An ellipsis consists of 3 dots. Example, participant A said, "I don't really know why I did that." Ellipsis, "I don't know." Indicate long pauses in the interview. If there's a lengthy pause lasting at least 10 seconds, write it as pause and close in brackets in a separate line. Example, participant A said, I don't really know why I did that. Then pause is in the next line and then followed by I don't know. Transcribe inaudible material. Classify as inaudible when speech cannot be heard due to poor recording or noise. If any words are inaudible, type inaudible in parentheses and put the time it occurred in the voice file. Example, participant A said, my first job is at inaudible 00315, where I learned the ropes of the trade. I enjoyed working there so much because the people and the pay were great. Transcribe unintelligible material. Classify as unintelligible when speech can be heard, but it cannot be understood due to the speaker's manner of speech. If any words are unintelligible, then type unintelligible in parentheses and put the time it occurred in the voice file. Example, participant A said, my first job is at unintelligible 00315, where I learned the ropes of the trade. I enjoyed working there so much because the people and the pay were great. Remember the difference between inaudible and unintelligible. Inaudible is something that cannot be heard. Unintelligible can be heard but cannot be understood. Indicate quotations. If the participant indicates that they said something to another person, indicate this with double quotations and use proper punctuations. Example, participant A said, I told her, isn't that awesome? Indicate words that are emphasized. If the participant emphasizes certain words, italicize them. Example, participant A said, I really, really hate her. Indicate recognition of grammatical errors. If the participant commits a grammatical error, write sick immediately after the error to indicate that it is actually what they said rather than an error in transcription. Example, participant A said, he gone to her house. That is a grammatical error. It should have been, he went to her house. But if you're doing a true verbatim transcription, then whatever the participant says, including grammatical errors, has to be transcribed. So, place here, he gone sick to her house. Indicate trailing off or changing of thoughts. If the participant trails off on a word or changes his thoughts partway through a sentence, type a long dash. This is called an M dash. Examples. The participant A said, I am very M dash happy to be here. I am so M dash. This is embarrassing. Include nonverbal communication. Identify all nonverbal communications such as laughing, sighing, gestures, etc., and closing them in brackets. Example, participant A said, I am such a spoiled brat, laughing. Do not interpret the nonverbal communication. Example, I am such a spoiled brat, laughing. Do not transcribe this as, I am such a spoiled brat, nervously laughing, because nervously there is already your own interpretation. Then review for anonymity. Check that identifying information such as all names are removed. Use a blank line, a pseudonym, or a general term in parentheses to replace the word that you remove. Example, I went to a local hospital instead of indicating what the participant actually said. To see how blank was doing after her delivery instead of indicating the name of the person whom participant A visited in the hospital. Then proofread again. Review the transcript again while listening to the audio recording. Try to decipher one more time the previously inaudible parts. Correct for errors and check that anonymity is respected. We have seen how to create a transcript file, but what are the uses of a transcript file? Its primary use is that it contains the data that you will analyze. But is there anything else? Yes, there's much more. You may write notes on the transcript file that can help you in other ways. But before we go to that, if you have not clicked the subscribe button yet, then please do so now. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. So aside from containing the research data, what are the other functions of the transcript file? And what notes can you write on the transcript file that will help you meet these other functions? First, you can write questions that you failed to ask and which you can ask in the next interview. Example, in interview number 1, participant A said, I hate my father. And you answered, how do you feel about your mother? Oops, there's something wrong with your reply because you did not follow up about the verbalization of participant A. So, write a note, ask, what about your father do you hate? So that when you go back for the next interview, you already have a prepared question. You may also write notes on the transcript file that will critique your interview technique. Example, participant A said, when she did that, I got so mad that I wanted to punch and kick her. And you replied, it's not good to think that way. That's wrong. So write a note. I blocked participant A's verbalization with a value-laden response. I need to avoid this. So this is a reminder on what mistakes you have committed and which you should not make again. You can also use the transcript file to reflect on how the data is affecting you. Example, participant A verbalized, I hate my father, and you replied, how do you feel about your mother? Then note, I realize now that the reason why I changed the topic was that participant A's statement made me feel uncomfortable because I also hate my father and feel guilty about this. Why is it important to do this? Because you have to be aware of your biases. Your own biases can hinder effective interviewing and may also affect your interpretation of data. Initially, you became aware of your biases by writing the researcher's background, but sometimes, even with that exercise, you are unable to identify all of your biases, and your biases come out only when you're already doing data collection. So, this is going to help you identify those biases so that you can set them aside consciously the next time that you go for an interview. The transcript file can also help you identify patterns of unverbalized topics. Example, you notice that every time the interview touches on the topic of the participant's father, he either changes the topic, gives a very short response, or uses a lot of pauses or hesitations. You have to remember that in an interview, what is left unsaid is just as important as what is said. Therefore, you can write the note. Is participant A avoiding talking about his father? Explore this in the next interview. So this is the end of the video lecture. I hope this has helped you. Good luck in your journey in qualitative research.